Well, hello, hello from beautiful Portland, Oregon. It is I, your favorite whimsical oracle, here back home with 100% oxygen saturation. I'm feeling good. I have my brains back. I don't know if yes, I think I do have my feet, yes, everything is back in place. Good to see you all. You know what I wanted to do now that I'm feeling 100% better? I think I want to do the month of December. I think I got a feeling about the month of December. I did a remote view last night, and I try to always, as a remote viewer, I use the heart centered remote viewing technique. I always try to put myself in the shoes of the other person. That's really the best kind of remote viewing, when you can really see through the eyes of another person. And I'm really concerned when I got into the energy of Donald Trump, because I felt so tired and exhausted, and I felt like this was going to be a really brutal winter. I think it's going to be a really hard winter, I'm sorry to say, in DC. And I think we're going to be seeing that President Trump will not be able to travel as much as he could when he was younger, which is going to be very difficult for him to meet with people from other countries. They're going to have to come to see him. So we're seeing more and more dignitaries coming to DC rather than President Trump flying off to, say, Saudi Arabia. I think Saudi Arabia was, if I'm not mistaken, his last major trip abroad. He didn't make the G20, if I'm not mistaken. And in terms of oh no, excuse me, not Saudi Arabia, it was Egypt, excuse me, for the peace summit. Excuse me. But other than short jaunts back and forth to Florida, I don't think he's made any international trips for quite some time. And I think that could be partially because his doctors are putting the kibosh on his flying a lot with his cankles. And if he has risk for deep venous thrombosis, they might be cautious about having to give him the okay to fly, particularly for these long distance flights. But certainly for something as important as a peace summit, something like that, then they would have wanted to have checked him and give him the excuse me, the medical okay. And then he would have been able to have traveled long distance. However, now we have Saudi Arabia coming to the United States. I think Netanyahu's going to be coming. They're trying to negotiate things like Abraham Accords, rebuild of Gaza, etc. And it looks like Netanyahu may be on his way out. If he agrees to the pardon, he's going to have to confess to, excuse me, taking bribes. Don't know what happened to my coffee. Oh, here it is. And so if Netanyahu admits to the crime of the bribe, then he will have to leave office and he will be pardoned. So it's on condition of admission to guilt and that he leave the Knesset. So that would open up the Knesset to finally have elections, and we could be seeing a more moderate candidate come in, like Benny Gantz, whose focus is more on unity rather than division. But I did feel when I went into the energy of Trump that this was going to be a very difficult winter. And I don't know if I'm going to have the physical strength. I feel like my strength is low, excuse me, as Trump for January. I feel like come January 20th, and it's a real difficult haul to get me out of bed and to get me down those cold hallways in DC in the middle of January, February. I just, like him or not, send that healing energy, because, that's what it felt to me like. All right, we're going to go ahead and do the Empath prayer. Thank you for your love and kindness. Good to see you all. Let's see what we find out for the month of December. We've got the cards here. We're going to find out. Okay. I want to call on white light protection for myself and this community as we ask permission from Spirit to access the Akashic records. We call on our spirit guides and our good angels to be with us. Please give us the clarity and the wisdom that is needed to empower all of us on our journeys to make the best decisions for ourselves, our families, the planet, the people we love, but also to help those that we may have strife with. And together, collectively, as a community, we say, Amen, Amen, Amen. May all souls be healed. May all souls be healed. All right. So I just wanted to look at Donald Trump's cards for the month of December, because when I had done a remote, there was a really good chance that things could be ending for him in December, that he's going to have some kind of a health challenge. If he comes back after December, I don't know what kind of shape he's going to be after Christmas holiday, because it really looked like a rapid decline from a remote perspective. I never said that he was going to die, but something takes a turn for the worst in December. And he's got to, if he's declining, it's not going to get better after Christmas break when people come back in the dead of winter. Evidently, he's sleeping more throughout the day. He's having some cognitive decline and slip-ups that are becoming more apparent. He seems to be on some kind of blood thinner that's causing his bruising on his hands. And I think he also had recently Band-Aids, if I'm not mistaken, on his hands. I see more legal problems for Donald Trump also, because what we have here when we go into this energy, the first thing we have is this idea of the Lady of Truth. And when the Lady of Truth comes in, she often comes in with the courts. She is the stoic woman. She carries the sword of truth. She puts the past behind her, and she often stands at the halls of justice. So there is some growing tension with Donald Trump, I believe, and it looks like it could be political even, and international problems, because the world courts, I would say, truth is coming out. If the Americans are not going to release the names or incriminating evidence against Donald Trump on the Epstein file, then it will most likely come from overseas. Just because you've got this truth coming out, and that it has to do with some kind of a global response. We have this grieving also, like that Donald Trump is depressed, that this is something you see in aging seniors, particularly after they've been diagnosed with a cognitive decline, is this kind of sundowning, tired, depressed, grieving over that which he has lost, as if he sees the waning or the ending of his life, his presidency, his legacy. And the issue is his health. The issue that is crossing him, that remains his main challenge, is in fact his health. And we had talked about the fact that his cabinet, if they're going to do a coup with the vice president or something like that, they would have to have a medical reason. And so getting him to do MRIs and working a case against him could be something that we're looking at in the future. And there's his presidency. And then there's fighting in his cabinet. So the other thing is that he's having more and more times of switching off, where they'll be fighting and arguing. And because he's not always cognitive, he will go offline. You'll start seeing him potentially simply stunned or spaced out, or not necessarily knowing where he is. And this arguing or tension and inability to control what's happening in Congress, what's happening in the House of Representatives and the Senate, etc., that there's this growing tension and a lack of leadership, and he seems to be completely off in his own world. What he's coming out of is that victory from, last year. He rode in on a white horse. He took that oath January 20th or whatever it was, and he was going to fix it. And he was coming in from, this big win. And that's not what's happened. He became a lame duck within 9 months of his presidency. his poll numbers were irrevocably trashed, and and Republicans are holding on by a razor thin margin in the House. And his future is a great celebration is coming, a great celebration. So this could be the Christmas holidays. It could, it almost feels to me like he's some old man that's on his way out. He's wistful about yesteryear with that Five of Cups. And then they're trying to make him happy. So they're giving him these parties and these Christmas wishes to make the old man happy, who's half out of his mind. That's kind of, he's not. Also, the third house is the mental house. That's kind of how I teach it to my students, is that it's what you sit in and marinate. It has a deep psychological subconscious aspect to it, and this conflict you see within him, in his cabinet, and this inability to control for it is something you're going to see more of in December. Reaching across the aisle, lovers, and comes heartbreak. So we're continuing to see more chaos as more and more liberties are being taken away, ICE, etc. He has no ability to control for any of this. He simply walked off the job and allowed a bunch of a fascist to come in and overhaul ICE and everything else. And it's almost as if he has acquiesced to this fifth column, it almost looks like. Yeah, this group that comes in, this fighting crazy group, and he's simply like the deer in the headlights, unable to take any responsibility. And his final outcome is a crash. And I'm going to go ahead and predict that the crash begins before Christmas. So also his opposition, his house of opposition would be coronary artery disease. The 8th house in a Celtic cross would be your house of opposition. This is your house, your immediate environment, and the environment of the persons or issue or the environment of that thing which you have issue with. And so it's a little bit disturbing to see the third house, or excuse me, the 8th house, his house of opposition, being a card that is, often associated with coronary artery disease. And then he takes a trip, and then there's a crash. There's some kind of possible health crash. And we're seeing a lot of indications here. If you go ahead, we'll open up a little bit more for you to see these cards. I hope they are visible for everyone. Makes for a much more enjoyable reading when you can see those cards. But you can see that the crossing card with the grief is in fact the strength card for Donald Trump. Now this is nice. This I do like for Trump because it would indicate in the 7th house lovers card a deep desire to maybe reach across the aisle, maybe try to be a little bit more acquiesce, a little bit kinder to the opposition. Maybe he's afraid that documents are going to start to come out that he's not going to be happy with. And so you have this kind of energy coming in of lovers and 2 of cups, where maybe he's afraid that they're secretly thinking to remove him. Maybe he's afraid that Mamdani is going to, in New York, pressure an investigation. So that's why he's fawning over Mamdani in the White House. So when we look at this kind of a profile, you look at a profile of someone like Donald Trump, you always have to think in terms of what's in it for me, what's in it for me. And so anytime you see this kind of juxtaposition coming into his 7th house, something like lovers, where they're reaching across the aisle, and this 2 of cups, this wooing in, the art of the deal, what's in it for me. And his opposition is the sword of truth. I wouldn't be surprised. Also, this can be a surgery. It's the spies card. It's the sword of truth. It's Archangel Michael, who is often present in surgery. Maybe something's going on with coronary artery disease. Maybe he has to have a stent placed. maybe bypass or something, but this could indicate an actual physical surgery, and it's over a card that's often associated with coronary artery disease or heart issues, being in his house of opposition with the sword of truth. And then something here about his hope and fear about a trip coming up. And then this is my Israel card. Every major arcana, I kind of try and associate it with a different country. Pay the Queen of Wands, who holds the sunflower. That is my card for beautiful Ukraine. But my card for Israel is the woman in the white and the blue, which are, of course, the colors of Israel, and she carries the Torah. So that is my Israel card. There's something about a trip associated with Israel. I know that Israel is currently on the verge of going back into Lebanon because the terrorist group Hezbollah has taken over Lebanon. And when the United States Army left Lebanon, Israeli troops had to kind of be the troops that were guarding against Hezbollah forces. And unfortunately, we pulled out of Syria, and that led Israel to be more vulnerable to these Iranian proxy armies like Hezbollah. So we could be seeing some kind of necessary military action between Hezbollah, NATO, Israel, U.S. forces, etc. And there comes the King of War. And of course, the King of War is the King of Mars and the Sun, Yehuda, who comes with the staff of authority. But he also teaches us often the nature of war, which is to take up space, my territory, or to take up my territory. So we could be seeing in December some type of military action possibly taking place in the Middle East. And unfortunately, that kind of war energy coming in at a time when Donald Trump's health is really not that great. Wow. The last thing is I kept getting, when I went into trance, I felt so cold. Like the dang North Pole had moved to Washington, D.C. It's like, this is going to be horrific for these poor people that work in D.C. I'm so sorry. But you're talking about some real winter weather moving in along the Midwest and parts of the eastern seaboard, coming in late January, February, and possibly longer, along with some really icy cold, wet conditions coming into parts of the southern states. Let's look at the weather. I'm so sorry if those are your states. I've got very close friends in Wisconsin. They're like, meh. Like, Wisconsin weather, no biggie. But the whole world falls apart, if it snows in Los Angeles. It's just like the earth opens up. It's like this whole, you hear the angels sing. It's just like they can't handle a little ice on the road. Yeah, going to be very cold in some parts. It's really weird weather. There is going to be a lot of advisories, so people need to be listening depending upon your area for Christmas holidays going into January. There's going to be a lot of winter advisories and also actions on the part of FEMA and other government organizations to try and make sure that people are safe due to unusual weather conditions. But we have some great cooperation happening in between states, local cities, and government, etc., with that nice Three of Pentacles coming in and the Two of Cups. So be prepared to see people really coming together and cooperating. There we have it, the dreaded Knight of Swords for anybody who is learning about the weather, that icy rain, the icy cold, and the heavy winds that come, storms, ice storms, the freezing of the Ice King as he wreaks his angry winds across the nation. Yes, so when we think about heavy, brutal weather, icy storms, hurricanes, heavy winds, that energy of wind gone amok, we are talking about the infamous Knight of Swords. These weather changes could also be having an impact on the market, buying, selling, possible problems in the area of the market due to bad weather, and also transportation disruption comes in. And we could also be seeing some school days and a lot of federal offices potentially being closed in the coming weeks due to bad weather. Take care of your health. There are also indication here from these cards that we could be seeing emergence of new health challenges with viruses and things of this nature. And this is because one of the aspects of the Knight of Swords from a Chinese medical perspective is that the metal element is associated with the lungs and the large intestine, which are often where we see viruses often impacting us in the winter months. And so when you see this juxtaposition between the healing of Page of Cups, which is associated with Archangel Raphael, and we also see this juxtaposition of that Knight of Swords, we're going to be seeing an unusually rough flu season as well, I'm sorry to say. Yeah. Clarification, expect more fighting in Congress, and probably there's going to be some deadlock. So we're going to be seeing a lot of trouble getting bills passed when people return to Congress, where nothing is getting done. Everybody's arguing, everybody's unhappy. Real concerns about the president, real concerns about the president's health. I'm telling you, something is going on. It appears to be cardiovascular. There's also grief. There's also some cognitive decline, and it's causing some real fear and anxiety in this government. And I think we're going to start seeing signs of that in the months of December and January. Hopes and fears. Archangel Michael moving into ninth position. The truth coming out. The truth will set you free, folks. And then the final outcome is within 30 days, expect massive overhaul and changes, major fighting, passion, fights for territory. Take care of your health. If you are vulnerable, we always say, get that get that flu vaccine, folks. Don't go messing with your health. You're too important to us to be compromising your health. So do what you got to do to take care of yourself, because it is going to be a rough one. All right. That was fun, man. I feel so much better after my hallucinations and altitude sickness. I was quite ill, and I do apologize if in my illness I was not quite rational. Always take care of your health, and be grateful when you do have your health, because I can tell you, when you have a health challenge, it's a very scary thing. All right, everybody, stick together, love each other, as I know you do. Be kind to all so that all will be kind to you too. God bless. Peace out. We'll see you next day. Namaste. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, if you need to get an appointment with me, you can find all the information below. All right, we're out of here.